Hello, in this session we are going to solve one quadratic equation by 4 different methods, namely completing the square, quadratic formula, factorization, and the graphical method. To begin with, let us solve this expression by the method of completing the square. We have x squared minus 10x minus 24 is equals to 0. Luckily, the coefficient of x squared happens to be 1, so we don't need to divide the entire expression by any factor. We proceed to what is normally the second step after making the coefficient of x squared 1, which is moving the constant term. Our constant term in this case is minus 24. When we move it to the right hand side, we end up with x squared minus 10x is equals to 24. The third step would be for us to introduce a new c, and the new c is given by the formula b over 2 into bracket squared. In this case, our b term is minus 10, which is the coefficient of x, all over 2 into bracket squared, and that simplifies into minus 5 into bracket squared. So we have found our new c as minus 5 into bracket squared. The fourth step is to introduce this new c on both sides of the expression. In this case, we have x squared minus 10x plus minus 5 into bracket squared is equals to 24 plus minus 5 into bracket squared. Where does this lead us? We go to the next step, which is using the quadratic identity on the left hand side, which gives us x minus 5 into bracket squared, and on the right hand side it gives us 24 plus 25. In this case, we end up with an expression of the form x minus 5 into bracket squared is equals to 49. Now, to make x the subject, we introduce the square root sign on both sides, and when we do that, the square root cancels with the square, and we find that x minus 5 is equals to plus or minus 7. Now that we have found x is plus or x minus 5 is plus or minus 7, we proceed to solving that, and in this respect we'll find that x is going to be equivalent to 7 plus 5, which is 12, and again x is going to be equivalent to minus 7 plus 5, which is 2. And in this respect, therefore, we find that our answer for this expression at this point, if you allow me, we can reduce this expression to what we had here. Instead of writing x squared minus 10x plus or minus that, we make it one expression, which is in the form of x minus 5 into bracket squared. On the right hand side, again as one expression, minus 5 squared is 25, 25 plus 24 is 49, so this is equivalent to 49. And then that's where we are putting the square root signs to simplify and make x the subject, giving us plus or minus 7, and therefore x is 7 plus 5, which is 12, and x is minus 7 plus 5, which is minus 2. So we have found the answer there that x is either 12 or minus 2. The second method is that of a quadratic formula, and as stated earlier, quadratic formula is x is equals to minus b plus or minus the root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Proceeding in the same momentum, our b term is minus 10, so we take minus 10 plus or minus the root of b squared, again is minus 10 squared, minus 4ac, our a is 1, and our c is minus 24. All these divided by 2a, our a is 1, and therefore we have 10 plus or minus the root of minus 10 squared is 100, minus times minus is positive, so that gives us 96 all over 2. And in summary, 100 minus and minus is a plus, so 100 plus 96 gives us 196. So we can simplify this as 196. So we have the square root of 196, which is the same as 14. And in this case, we have 10 plus or minus 14 all over 2. Now, our x is therefore going to be equivalent to 10 and plus 14 all over 2, or x is going to be 10 minus 14 all over 2. What is 10 plus 14 over 2? That is 24 over 2, which is 12. So x, the first value for x is going to be 12. And what is 10 minus 14 over 2? 10 minus 14 is minus 4 over 2. That gives us minus 2. And therefore, we get x is minus 2. And as you can see, the answer is the same whether you are using the method of completing the square or the method of quadratic formula. The third way is factorization. And you'll allow me to factorize. We are going to take the sum of this expression as minus 10, and the product of this expression of factorizing is minus 1 times minus 24, which is minus 24. We get the factors of 24. In this case is 1, there is 2, there is 3, there is 4, there is 6, there is 8, there is 12, and there is 24. All these are factors of 24. From these factors, we choose two factors which when added will give us minus 10, and which when multiplied against each other will give us minus 24. The two factors here are 2 and 12. Now, if we take the factor as positive 2 and minus 12, then when you add 2 plus minus 12, you should get minus 10, and when you take 2 times minus 12, you should get minus 24. Therefore, the approved terms for this expression are 2 and minus 12. So we are going to use 2 and minus 12 to represent the middle term. In this case, therefore, we proceed as follows. We take x squared. Instead of writing minus 10x, we write plus 2x minus 12x, and then we proceed to minus 24 is equivalent to 0. Once we have attained that objective, we break the expression into two equivalent parts, and in these two equivalent parts we make the common term the subject of the brackets. So we introduce the common term for the first two terms. In this case, x is common, and inside the bracket we'll have x plus 2. That is the same expression written with a bracket. The operation in between is minus. The common term between 12 and 24 is simply 12, so we have minus 12 outside the bracket, and inside the bracket we'll end up with x, and then we'll end up with plus 2. Plus because minus times plus gives us negative, which will be negative 24. The final step on that expression will be to integrate what is outside the bracket against what is inside. So what is outside is x minus 12, and what is inside is x plus 2, the sum of which is 0. So you can see there we have reduced the expression into a workable formula, and if you allow me to use that space, we will say that either x minus 12 is 0, which means x is 12, or x plus 2 is 0, which means x is minus 2. Again, you see our answer is still the same. We had found by completing the square that x is minus 2 and x was 12. We also found by the method of quadratic formula that x is 12 and x is minus 2. And now we have found by the method of factorization that x is 12 and x is minus 2. The final method is the graphical method, and if you allow me to use that space, we are going to see briefly what this leads to. For the graphical method, we will be required to obtain the values of x and y. In this respect, the equation is x squared minus 10x minus 24 is 0. So you introduce the table of values x and y, and this table of values should have at least 5 and at most 7 terms, though there is not limited to extension. So we take 0, 1, 2, 3, minus 1, minus 2, and minus 3. In respect to x, where there is x, we put the values of x, and then we operate the expression to get the values, the corresponding values of y. In this case, when x is 0, y is minus 24. When x is 1, when x is 0, it is minus 24. When x is 1, it is minus 32. When x is 2, it is minus 36. When x is 3, it is minus 32. When x is minus 1, it is minus 12. When x is minus 2, it is 4. And when x is minus 3, it is 24. So, by using these values, we are going to draw a graph. And the graph is on a Cartesian plane, which, as you know, will be representative as follows. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. X values are running only up to 3, so we can have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the left hand side, the same. So minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, minus 5. The y values, however, have the least value as negative 24, and the highest value as the least value is negative 36, and the highest value is 24. So we'll proceed to choose a suitable scale. In this case, we have the scale is 10, 1 centimeter for 10, minus 10, minus 20, minus 30, and minus 40. Then we have 10, 20, 30, and 40. Now, in that respect, we have the x and y coordinates. So, the table of value gives us what to plot. 0 minus 24, this is 0 minus 24. And then we have 1 minus 32, 1 minus 32. Then we have 2 minus 36, 2 minus 36, somewhere there. Then we have 3, again, minus 32, is minus 32. The value for 3 is minus 36, 3 minus 36. 4 is minus 32. There is a value of 4 which was added there, which is minus 32. This is minus 36. Good. So, proceeding, we have minus 1 is minus 12. Minus 2 is 4. And minus 3 gives us 24. So you find that this graph will follow this curve. And from that graph, you are going to find that the point where the graph cuts the x-axis becomes the solution. In this case, x is minus 2. Should we continue extending the graph, you will find that this graph should cut where x is 12. So we will still find that the solution for this expression is that x is minus 2 and x is 12. That shows clearly that we can solve a quadratic equation using 4 distinct methods. The first one being that of completing the square. The second method is that of the quadratic formula. The third is factorization. And the fourth, which we have just concluded, is the graphical method. Thank you very much.